It is 9 o'clock on a weekday morning here in New Zealand, and the most responsible thing I could possibly do right now is come on out to the shed and drink 6 different types of booze. I love my job. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse, and this is Still It, and these are 6 little experiments that I put down about 3 months ago. The idea was to experiment with cramming extra wood into the whiskey early on, and then letting it sit and aging afterwards. So it's not trying to cheat time and, quickly age a whiskey from the get-go. It's more about trying to do something at the beginning that'll give the whiskey a jump as you let it age for a decent amount of time. So there's an entire other video dedicated to what exactly these things are. I don't want to go into too much detail on it. By all means, hit pause on this video and go and check this card up here out. Come back and you'll know exactly what's going on. If you don't want to do that, this is the 3-month point in the video, and to give you a quick rundown of what each of these are, these two are the same except for the fact that this used US white oak chips and this used stave. So that's the same across these 3. The first one was the same amount of whiskey but with 11 grams of wood, chips, staves. The second one was the same amount of whiskey, chips and staves obviously, but these ones got 33 grams, so basically 3 times the amount of wood up front for 1 week. And then I pulled all of the extra wood out, so it's got the same amount of wood as these two. The last ones, they have exactly the same amount of wood, 11 grams, same amount of whiskey, but they went through 5 hot-cold cycles. So they went up to 55 degrees Celsius for, honestly, I don't remember how long. Watch the other video, it'll tell you. And then down into the freezer overnight. Now, I tasted these whiskeys 2 months ago to let you know what was happening then, but in some ways, I think this is going to be more interesting because, like I said, it's not about trying to, super fast age whiskey in 1 month and it tastes like 4 years old. That's not what this is about. It's more just trying to get a jump on it. So it's not trying to replace the aging process. It's trying to augment it by getting stuff into solution early so that as time goes along, that stuff is already in solution for it to be going through the chemical reactions it needs to go through. Anyway, should I start drinking at 9 o'clock in the morning? I think I should. The first thing to note is that the color on all of these is really beautiful. So the ones that have had staves, the staves were lightly charred on one side, but the other sides were not. They were just toasted. And this awesome golden color is really starting to come out on these now. And it's interesting because that color to me sort of represents something more like a Scotch whiskey, and the wood profile is very much heading in that direction as well. So it's not jumping up, kicking you in the face. In fact, on the nose, there's not a whole lot of wood there. This is the one that's basically the control for the staves, is slightly jaggy still. It still has the slight green whiskey smell. There's a small amount of grass in it. Green grass. But there's just something, I find it hard to describe. It's not headsy, it's not overly powerfully alcoholic, but it's not married and rounded on the edges. Great grain sort of flavors still coming through from the initial whiskey. There is actually, come to think of it, a lot less of the hot caramel sauce, sort of fudgy almost flavors that came through from the base whiskey. This was the Still Spirits whiskey kit, and that has a lot of, I would guess, crystal malt and dark specialty malts in it. The stuff looks like a stout when you mix it up. And when it first came off the still, it had a lot of that flavor coming through. Now that's dialing down a whole lot. But the back end is still pretty similar to the nose. There's still a slight jagginess to it. There's still a slight, it's just not cohesive. Sorry team, the bugs are real at the moment, which is why I'm using these things. I'm not just being a poser, they actually do help. Oh, but by the way, if you do want to pick up a Still It Glen can or a Still It coin, you can go to chasethecraft.com and find the merch there. Not bad. It's about what I would expect from this kind of thing at 3 months old if I was aging it you know, the same way that I always age things. Anyway, on to the one that overloaded wood at the beginning. So 3 times as much wood for 1 week and then pulled it out. Oh. Oh. Really? That jagginess, which actually, I forget that there is a lot of table sugar in this whiskey as well. That could be part of what I'm getting on that sort of weird thin note on the nose and the palate. It's not in this. It's not in this at all. To be honest, there's less aroma overall, but the aroma that is there is brighter, fresher fruit and honey notes. Wow, that's so different. Okay. The palate heads in the same direction. So it is brighter, it is fruitier. It has a, you know, honeyed pastry thing going on much more than this. The astringency is probably about the same, but because that kind of rough green finish has been rounded off a little bit more, I actually quite like the astringency in this one. It balances that fresh honey fruit up front with the astringency on the back end. It kind of acts like the bitterness of hops in a beer, where it makes me want to go back and drink more rather than, you know, just being odd. It finishes nicely and makes it moreish. Okay, let's move on to the last one. Really? Man, these are so different. This is different again. So that green finish has been rounded out even more. In fact, there's almost none of it left in this at all now. And it still has a fruit component to it that this one doesn't have. But in this case, instead of being a fresh fruit, which in this I think I'd have to pick fresh pear and fresh green grape. This one is hitting more stone fruity. A touch of apricot and peaches, but mostly plum. And the sweetness that's in it is rounder, thicker, deeper, darker. So I guess it makes it comes across more like a stewed fruit. My nan's old school fruit crumbles. That's what it reminds me of, because it has the grain body to it with the stewed fruit sitting over the top of it and kind of that sticky, reduced sugar sweetness. Let's see if the... Okay, yeah. That's my favorite. More sweetness and more astringency. This is even more sweetness, and it's even more dark, sort of sickly sweet. But then the extra astringency balances out even more. None of these have any pepper whatsoever. This one is my favorite simply because I lean towards those. I like those dark stone fruit kind of flavors. But this one's not bad as well. Definitely a huge difference between the three. Anyway, let's go over here and try the chips. So the chips, this is the standard one, same as this. Wow, okay. So the oak chips had a lot more redwood in them, as you can probably tell by the color, which is pretty freaking stunning. But because of that, it's going to, oh man, have a lot more of that. I refer to it as antique furniture. It has that, it's almost like old wood with wood oil on it. It's a much denser, roastier, toastier flavor. Okay, it smells really good. Okay. Wow. That was wonderful until about 3/4 the way through, and then I got punched with alcohol. I guess what I'm saying is it's just a little bit more high octane, a little bit more ballsy, for want of a better word. Speaking of balls, today's sponsor, Manscaped, want to help look after yours. That's right. Manscaped offer a range of kick-ass men's grooming products, and you can get the experience, the full experience, with the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0, which includes a ear and nose hair trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, very nice, LED waterproof ceramic blades, their ball deodorant to keep things fresh, the ball toner, and when you pick this thing up, you get 2 free gifts, one of which is the sweet-ass travel pack, and the second being a pair of boxers that I'm not going to show off for you. No one needs to see that. But Manscaped don't only do stuff for your short and curlies, they also have the Shears 2.0 kit. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm a biter of fingernails, so it's nice having my own kit to try and break that habit. Even better is when the kids come running to me with splinters and so on and so forth. I've got my own shit to try and sort that situation out. Very nice. Thank you, Manscaped. So, order today to get things sorted in time for Christmas. Go to manscaped.com and use the code STILLIT to get 20% off. Your jingle balls will thank me later. Not so much of the green whiskey thing, although the amount of wood flavor in this is up so much higher. It's so much more of a robust kind of wood flavor compared to these, that maybe it's there and it's hiding. But the jagginess on the back end is 100% there still. The only real difference between this and this, to me, is the difference in wood flavor. Interesting. Okay. There is a slight difference on the nose between this and this. This is the overloaded wood, so it had more wood and it was taken out. The difference is that that tastes like slightly charred oak. That's all it tastes like. This is similar, but it has baking spice as well. Cloves, cinnamon, perhaps a touch of nutmeg. It's much, much, much more complex. Oh, it was a large mouthful, and I swallowed it wrong. But it's still a bit on the hot side. The baking spice carries through really nicely to the back end. I apologize. My reaction on that was probably mostly the fact that I tried to breathe it. Perhaps slightly fruitier as well, like fresh red grapes. It's a more uplifting, volatile, and when I say volatile, no, volatile is not the right word. It's an uplifting, it smells like spring. I know. Fresh flowers. That's what it's like. I couldn't put my my finger on the type of flowers, to be honest. All right. Wow. Okay. Yeah, totally different. So this has a touch of the baking spice, but it's going much more towards really dark fruit, figs, dates, and chocolate, with cinnamon and vanilla on top, actually. And that is by far the most developed and cohesive in terms of the whiskey sort of development. I think it is not as jaggy. Let me try this again without trying to freaking breathe it in. Yeah, definitely the most developed in terms of progression of that jagginess that needs to be taken off the edge. And the most cohesive as well. I don't know, all the flavors are just starting to meld together more. I'm left feeling a little bit similar to the last time I tried these, in that either one of these things by themselves, like just the chips or just the staves, I feel like wouldn't tell me a whole lot about what these processes do and how they do it, and whether there's any difference at all. But first, I got to say thank you to the Patreons. Thank you so much, guys. I get to do this stuff because of you. Thank you so much, and thank you for being supportive with the recent things that are going on. You guys know I appreciate the support. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyway, what I was going to say is that individually I feel like I couldn't say much, but the fact that these two different tests with different types of wood have tracked in a similar way. These two that haven't had anything extra done to them are pretty much what I would expect from whiskies with this amount of wood at this age. The wood is starting to add flavor. It's starting to add a little bit of body, but the whiskey itself, sitting underneath those things, hasn't sort of married, and it hasn't become a cohesive unit. They're very separate, and they have kind of flavor gaps in between them, and the finish on the whiskey is still green. Especially in this one, there's a slight amount of you know, that green grass thing. All of those things are what I would expect from a whiskey at this age. These ones don't have more wood. It's not just more oak teabagging. In fact, in terms of pure wood presence, they're pretty similar, maybe slightly more astringent, but because of the other changes, they can take that. There's just an X factor that's been added extra to what these two have. And these ones, the hot and colds, have even more of that. The whiskey's starting to really incorporate all the flavors together. They're starting to bleed and meld and morph and sort of undulate as you drink them. They flip back and forth, which is something I love. And the whiskey's rounded right out on the back end. It's interesting to me that these make fresh fruit and these make kind of stewed fruit dark flavors. Why? I couldn't tell you. I'm going to have to go back and look at my notes and the video itself from when I did these at a month old. But I feel like the gap between each of these whiskeys has broadened and widened the longer it's sat, which gives me some hope that perhaps I'm onto something here in terms of, you know, cramming what we want into the whiskey early and then letting it sit and develop over time. I don't know. I would love to hear from you guys. If you've done something similar, let me know. Let me know if you think that these kind of processes help in the long term with spirits. In any case, team, I hope you enjoyed this video because I certainly have. I definitely want to pursue this kind of thing more now. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, guys, because that helps me out a whole lot. I really, really appreciate it. If you've got something to add and comment on the video, please, guys, stick it in the comment section down below. Just be, you know, reasonable human beings down there. That would be much appreciated. And if you're not subscribed yet and you enjoy this kind of content, please, please hit the subscribe button down below. And don't forget, guys, keep chasing the craft, and I will catch you next time. See ya.